Welcome everyone to the Real News Network. My name is Maximilian Alvarez. I'm the editor-in-chief here at the Real News, and it's so great to have you all with us. Something besides coffee is certainly brewing at the world's largest coffee chain. The rank-and-file effort to unionize Starbucks stores around the United States is truly one of the most head-spinningly historic, worker-led movements in our generation. As of today, April 27th, 2022, close to 250 Starbucks locations have filed for union elections since the Elmwood Avenue store in Buffalo, New York, made history by becoming the first location to unionize in December of 2021. On top of that, 37 Starbucks locations have already voted in their union elections, with a staggering 35 of those locations voting in favor of unionizing. And by the time that you see this, I can almost guarantee that those numbers will have gone up. I truly struggle to think of a precedent in recent history where such a widespread grassroots surge has moved so quickly and been so successful. Even in the face of intense opposition from corporate executives and upper-level managers at one of the most powerful companies in the world, and working within the incredibly restrictive confines of U.S. labor law that have traditionally made it quite difficult to unionize your workplace, workers organizing with Starbucks Workers United keep racking up wins. Last week, on a special reporting trip to New York City, I got to sit down with Arianna Ayala, who's been a partner at Starbucks for the last year and a half and is a member of the organizing committee at her store in New York, which recently filed for a union election with the National Labor Relations Board. We talked about her own experience working at Starbucks during the COVID-19 pandemic, why she and her fellow partners took that fateful step to organize, and how they, like Starbucks partners around the country, believe that a unionized workforce will make Starbucks a better company and help it live up to its promise.
Hi, I'm Arianna Ayala. I'm a partner at Starbucks for 1.5 years, and I'm part of the organizing committee at my store in New York City that has been helping Starbucks workers organize.
Well, Ari, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me today on a pretty exciting week for you guys. Like for Starbucks partners here in New York and around the country. I can barely keep up with the news. I think like within the span of the past 72 hours, the NLRB has slapped Starbucks with a lawsuit demanding that they reinstate, I think it was 3 of the fired organizers in Arizona. A number of other stores have successfully voted to unionize, I think bringing us up to over 20 now that have voted outright to unionize, only 2 that have voted against. The Seattle Roastery, right in the heart of Starbucks's home, like voted to unionize. So, and then here in New York, where we are, where your store is, you're like there multiple stores filed for a union election at once. Like, I guess I just wanted to start there and just kind of ask, like, how are you centering yourself in all of this? Like, what is it like to be in the midst of what is genuinely a historic unionization wave at one of the most powerful companies in the country?
I definitely would want to say that it's almost surreal, to know that you can come together with others and really build upon something that you believe internally and see it like be completed externally. I know that for me, it just what started as an idea became a reality when I was talking to my fellow partners and really being able to dive into the change we wanted to see and being able to see, well, there's like 2-3 stores organizing. Why don't we jump in?
Yeah, man. It's like, and it's like you see why companies like Starbucks have tried so hard for so long to prevent what is happening right now. Like, this is why every store from Amazon to Walmart, like what is happening at Starbucks is what they have most feared, because as soon as one store does it and people see it's possible, then suddenly you kind of realize the bullshit that they've been feeding us all
yeah.
this time, telling us that it's not possible or no one wants it and that kind of thing. So I want to dig into that in a minute, but I wanted to like before we get too far into it, like get to know a little more about you and kind of how you came to work at Starbucks, the kind of work that you do there, and how you got swept up in the organizing.
Sure. I guess I'll start where I was originally located, which was in Florida, where I grew up. And I kind of heard from a friend of a friend the amazing benefits that Starbucks provided you with. I think I was like in my second to last year of high school, and I applied and I got the job. And, you know, those first initial interviews, you're really sat down and you discuss like the heart of Starbucks and their mission to be a third place, to really be, you know, recognizable as a home to our customers and to yourself, that we're a family, that we're somebody that goes beyond just regular food service and retail service. And I think it was about 6 months into me working there where I needed to pick up and go to college. And I really wanted to go into the city. And that was really a big opportunity for me. Kind of things fell through, but the only thing that stayed consistent was Starbucks, and the opportunity I have through ASU to go to school fully paid off. And so I made the big move. I moved here. I've been here for about over 6 months. We're going to cap over a year in August, but I transferred to the store that I'm currently located at, and I got to talk to the former manager that was working there, and they were just super encouraging about the move. They were really with me every step of the way, and it kind of, you know, that's where I felt the Starbucks like family love. You know, I'm going to be able to make this move and feel supported and really get the benefits that I needed. And once I moved here, it got a little funky. Once everything started picking up with other neighboring stores, I really got to see what it was that needed to change. I think I'm a part of a generation that's known to not really take what others have taken, you know. We don't need stressful work environments. I don't need to feel overworked if I'm going to school full time and if it's a part-time job. I don't need to feel like my benefits are in jeopardy because of short scheduling and understaffed. And a bunch of my fellow partners felt the same way. And it really was down to connecting with one another, looking to their sides. I kind of call it the bystander effect, you know. No one really does something until somebody else does. Right. And so that's really where it picked up, was my coworker being like, let's start organizing. And I'm like, are you saying that right now? Like right here? I mean, I guess so. And it's been a wild ride since then.
Yeah, I bet. And so there's so much I want to kind of ask about there, but I guess like even just thinking through it, the move from Florida to New York in the middle of a pandemic, and then just kind of, like you said, like I'm being, seeing up front, you know, the reality of that work and seeing the things that needed to change while also still feeling attached to, that sense of place that Starbucks cultivates. So before we kind of talk more about the organizing, you know, for folks who are maybe only customers at Starbucks who don't see what y'all go through on a day-to-day basis, take us back to that like beginning when you were kind of thrown into the fire. Like, what was your day-to-day like?
My day-to-day was usually like, I'm a closer, and there's different 3 shifts. So you have openers, mid shifts, and closers, depending on, you know, the amount of workers you have at your store and the availability. But it usually branches out. I've worked every single shift, and they're all pretty hard in their own. But opening kind of looks like you're waking up at 4 a.m, getting to the store at 5. You're setting up the coffee. You're turning on and cleaning all the machines. You're making sure the lobby looks good. You're showcasing all the pastries and foods that we have in our display cases. And you're prepping for the morning rush. And then your day gets started, and before you know it, it's 12 o'clock and nothing's done because there's like maybe 2 or 3 openers, a few call outs, and it's New York City. People want their coffee.
I was gonna say, is it like World War Z where people are just banging on the glass before you open?
Absolutely, yes. The amount of, and actually something that is really sad is how short-staffed we are. We'll have to open later in the evening and you have lines of customers. Like, this is happening consistently, what's going on, and not being able to really give them a valid answer besides like, we're recovering from a pandemic. And it seems like everyone gets the slack but service workers.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're comfortable answering this, like, not just from the sort of internal working conditions side of Starbucks, but I was curious if you could say a little more about that, like how your experience was with customers during this time.
I feel like a lot of the time it's difficult for me to really formulate what it was like before the pandemic because I wasn't living in the city. But I do know that in the area that we're in, things can get hostile really easily. And I want to say it's like pandemic fever. Everyone's kind of antsy. Everyone's like trying to get back to the norm. But I've worked in food service like since I was like a freshman in high school. And I can say there is a little bit of a detachment between worker and customer. And I think where Starbucks tries to bridge the divide is with that third place and, really making the effort to connect with our customers. But in doing so, we kind of eliminate the relationship between corporate and partner. And it's solely focused on what can we do to make the customer feel better. I know that so many partners who have experiences being, verbally assaulted, being attacked and screamed at. And instead of being asked, how can we prevent this? And are you okay? We're asking the customer, what can I do for you? What can I get for you? And I think in there, it's kind of blurs the lines between partner and worker. And I've seen a lot of stores that are organizing really challenge the ideals that are being put behind quote unquote partners. Are we partners or are we really just workers? Because we are. We make the profit and we build the connections with customers, but a few things slip through the cracks and now your foundation's crumbling.
Yeah, no, that's well put. I mean, and God, I can only imagine what it was like for you and your fellow workers, both at your store and around the country, watching Howard Schultz and all these like higher executives say like things like so-called workers or the unions. This kind of is assaulting us, and it's like, no, it's your employees who like are trying to make this place better. And I think there's really something important there that I want to ask about, right? Because it really pisses me off. I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for you or for any Starbucks partner. But like, it's something that I remember hearing a lot myself in the retail, service, warehouse, factory jobs that I've had and all that stuff. Is like, if you say anything about your working conditions, if you even suggest unionizing or doing anything, any sort of collective action to improve what's going on at your job, you were immediately painted as like ungrateful and like you don't believe in the mission. And I think something that's so important that I'm hearing from you and a number of other Starbucks partners is it sounds like what y'all are saying is like, no, like we do care about this place and we want to make it better. Isn't that the kind of worker that you want at your company? Yeah. Do I have that right? Absolutely.
Like, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that's all we want is to be acknowledged, far above just being painted as, ungrateful. We want to be painted as, like, we're not just going to sit still and let ourselves be treated this way and be painted with the, the title of ungrateful. I think it's almost hypocritical to see, the way they've been going about, you have union busting, like every store is that Files has hit with management overload, write-ups, final warnings, termination even. And it feels hypocritical to see corporate trying so hard to get employees, partners who care so much about the company booted out and asking us, how can we support you? How can we be there for you? And in turn, completely casting us aside, throwing all of our wants and needs into a bucket of, but you're not speaking for yourself anymore. You're asking somebody else to speak for you.
Wow. And so that they're referring to the union as this kind of third party.
This third party, this man in the middle. And which is ironic considering how many of us are literally built up of the store. We're the union, is us. It's not Workers United, and that's something that, you know, we try really hard. I bet you hear it all the time. We work so hard to hear each other out, to listen to each other, to build each other up. And Workers United just gave us the door. They opened the door and they said, go.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's talk about that. So, like, you know, because again, I think it's truly historic, and I struggle to even find kind of a precedent where you have just a explosion of unionization filings in different stores across the country like this. But I guess, like, for folks who are watching and listening, you know, it's probably like, you know, we're like dogs chasing a car, right? We can barely keep up. And so I think it can be easy to lose sight of what that looks like on the ground. So in your store, you mentioned it earlier, where, you know, it's like everyone's kind of waiting, maybe feeling the same things, but this is why it's so important to talk to your coworkers, because then you realize, oh shit, we're all feeling the same thing. Maybe we should do something about it. So I guess, what did that look like when y'all started kind of talking more about this? And was, like, the stuff that was happening in Buffalo and Arizona, like, how was that kind of impacting the conversations y'all were having?
So initially there was none, you know, there was no conversation. And then things started picking up in the direction of organizing when we lost our former manager. And I think we were in limbo for about 4 months. And even then, there was overseeing managers we saw maybe twice a week, if even that. We had an overseeing ASM for a bit as well, but no store manager, and all these things that we wanted to change. And it was passing comments, I want to say, in between transitioning between morning to mid shift. You had partners coming in wondering, like, why isn't this getting done? Why are so many people calling out? Why do I only have 2 people for the afternoon rush? And having nobody to console and to really talk to about it, to hear you out, because we were all just frustrated with one another. Almost like, why aren't you picking up the slack for me, and vice versa. And it wasn't until we got an influx of new workers, because, mind you, I think something also is complacency. When you're just in something for so long, you don't even realize, like, oh, it could be better. Yeah. This could work a lot smoother. And one of the committee organizers, he was standing around on the floor one day, and it was kind of like, man, why are we doing this? Like, why do we have to put up with this? And right in the middle of the floor, it was like, we should start a union. This is ridiculous. We need to be heard, and we need to be accommodated for. And I remember just like, lower your voice. Like, you're going to get us in trouble. But it was within that same day, I was like, if you're serious, text me after work and I'll let you know, because I'm down. And I think in like a record time, I want to say 2 or 3 days, more than 70% of our store was already hanging out after work, talking about the things we want to see change. And we really just were leaning on one another for once in, you know, months. And I really think it was that domino effect of losing a manager who genuinely cared so much about us, and who was driven out for the very same reason that we were driven to organize. Not being accommodated for, not being considered, being overlooked, and almost bullied.
And so, and were there, like at the time had the Buffalo store unionized at this point?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When I tell you it was fast, it was fast. When did our store file? It was April. It was like 2 weeks ago on a Thursday. Mm-hmm. And when I tell you, we organized a week before that.
That's incredible, though. I mean, but also it just speaks to something that Sarah Nelson, the president of the Flight Attendants Union, says very forcefully a lot. She's like, we don't need to build power. She said this on the Real News. She's like, that's bullshit. Workers already have power. They just got to take hold of it.
100%.
And
yes.
you see in stuff like this, it's just like, okay, as soon as we talk and we're in agreement, shit starts moving very quickly. Yeah. And that's inspiring for people to see. And I think that people around the country are rightly inspired by that. And more workers in different workplaces are saying, hey, maybe we could do that. And that's again, the power of solidarity. It's the power of leading by example. And when more people, like you said, when you're not in that bystander position, when you see other people moving, makes it easier for you to move. And then we have that kind of collective motion that is very infectious.
Oh, 100%. Like, even when we would just have our meetings with my committee and we'd just talk about, wow, like we're really doing this. And I literally just look at all of those faces that I see every day and think, like, we have so much power and we don't even know it.
Mm-hmm. Fucking A. Oh, sorry, pardon my language. But you can tell I get excited about this stuff. So then I think we know what's coming, right? Because not just at your store, but at so many others that we've heard about. It's like the moment you file for NLRB election, which, I guess for viewers and listeners, go through the standard process. You get people to sign union cards. If 30% or more of the folks in that store express a desire to unionize, that triggers the NLRB election. You know this, I'm just explaining for others. So once you pass that threshold, and you guys had like well beyond 30% in your store, yeah. Right? It was like almost unanimous, if I recall.
Practically unanimous.
Practically unanimous. Okay, so practically unanimous, filing for an NLRB election, and then it's like in Jurassic Park where the T-Rex is coming and you see the water cup. It's like then you know that all the managers are going to start flooding the store. So could you tell us about what happened, how things changed once you filed?
Right. So once we filed, we had a lot of spooked baristas. Obviously, we had prepped them. I was letting them know questions will be asked. Favors will be given, and you need to really remember like what we are fighting for and who we're doing this for. I think it was about like that next week. Like I said, we were in limbo. We didn't have a store manager. And I think this past Monday, we finally got one. And it was like, oh. And we haven't really had too much oversight into, interrogation, at least. A little bit of the, how can I support you? A few district managers and other store managers coming over, kind of checking out like what's going on over here. We have a few of the community organizers working at other stores. A little funny that ever since we filed, a lot of us are being spread out and being put on the schedule at stores around the district, but never our home store, never with people who publicly signed our letter. And these store managers are meeting them in the back and during their breaks, asking them, so when did you email Workers United? How did this happen? Did it have anything to do with former management, or like who's giving you all this like merch? When did you find time to meet? How long have you been organizing? kind of really putting on the pressure, and all we can do is just say thank you. I think my time's up.
Yeah. It's like in high school when you walk into the bathroom and there's like a older student smoking. It's like, hey, I like unions too. Or how do you do, fellow kids? How do you do, fellow unionists? Man, that's intense. And I think it really shows, especially in retail and service, right, how schedules can be weaponized.
Yes.
Right? You know, you disperse people so that they're not actually on the same shifts and can't be talking to each other on the shop floor. Like that's, you know, I know that there are a number of ways that Starbucks is trying to fight this unionization wave. That seems to be one that we haven't heard as much about, but I think I can only imagine for you know, partners on a day-to-day basis, when you have that kind of change up and you're suddenly all dispersed at different stores, it can be a bit disorienting.
Of course. And almost kind of, again, reiterating the fact, do you really care about our store? Do you really care about, you know, us as a whole? If we're this big third home for others, and we preach so hard at Starbucks about, you know, we're the third home and other people have their second place, their workplace. What about our second place having to be a third place and a second place to us both? And when you kind of disperse us and we're already short-staffed and you're asking people who have never been interested in being given more different positions after you have a lineup of older partners who've been asking to be moved up, to be placed accordingly, being ignored because of their supposed affiliation. And I guess, how dare they have more authority after they have organized? It kind of throws you for a bit of a wild ride.
No, I mean, they you know, because again, if we're talking about, you know, folks who are standing up for themselves, their coworkers, and ultimately trying to make their workplace better, to sort of like get that treatment, it sort of rips the mask off. You know, you mentioned like what drew you to Starbucks in the first place. I can imagine like that's a hard thing to deal with when, you know, a company, a job that you believed in. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm thinking like just myself, like to be attracted to that, to then see this kind of response, it must be pretty jarring. And I wanted to ask like a two-part question. Like, A, have you all been kind of talking to the other stores that have filed or that have voted successfully to unionize in the city? And also, like, have you been hearing from them or within your own store about other forms of retaliation that you're on the lookout for?
The funny thing is with, you know, neighboring stores is there's kind of like this niche saying that goes around in our district that it's almost like a cool kids club that we're just not in. Our store, like I said, was in limbo and it was neglected, and there was a lot of hearsay from other partners that would come to our store to cover us, saying that they were sent there to make it better, to help us, because, you know, we just couldn't do it ourselves. And it was really discouraging, to say the least. It kind of scared us away from talking to other stores because we heard so much about how we were kind of like the ugly duckling in our district. And I think it was like a few weeks, like 2 weeks ago, when we were getting ready to go public, that a partner at a neighboring store in our district was asking one of our committee organizers, I heard your store's filing. I heard you guys are going to go public. And we hadn't said a word. Like I said, we were really spooked. I was very much like, don't talk to anyone. Don't say anything. I really don't want any of you to jeopardize your positions. And he was terrified. He's like, where'd you hear that? How did you? And it turns out that she was looking to organize her store and that they were just looking for advice and, you know, looking to really start their own team, and I kind of feel bad looking back on it, but that's like the fear that is being instilled in so many stores, is that don't talk to anybody about it because you don't know their intentions. You don't know if they're going to rat you out or if you're going to be like cornered and terminated. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really hard. But once, we were part of those 4 stores that filed and we really felt the love, we were like, oh my gosh, like we just need to go out to every store that's in our area and ask them, like, are you filing? Mm-hmm. And if I actually saw someone encouraging people to go and ask stores in their area if they're filing, and if not, to just leave them a little tip, don't order a single thing and make your way out as a form of solidarity.
Yeah. No, that's, I mean, don't be too hard on yourself, because like you said, it's like, it's very real. I mean, the Memphis 7 were fired, 7 Starbucks workers at a Memphis store, in Phoenix, I think even in Buffalo. So like we're seeing this happen where, Starbucks will kind of concoct whatever excuse they need to fire or deliberately underschedule people who they've identified as organizers. So, you got to keep your guard up. But yeah, I think, again, once you realize, that there's more, what is the saying? There's more of us than there are of them. Right? Then the tide kind of turns. And it's just really incredible to hear this. And so I don't want to keep you too long. So the one of the last things I wanted to kind of ask you is sort of like, what happens now? Like, what are y'all kind of looking forward to? What should viewers and listeners be on the lookout for? And how can folks watching this like show support for Starbucks workers?
All right. So we definitely, my store included in the 4 stores, and I think 2 others in New York City that are awaiting elections. It'll be a little bit of a bumpy road because, Starbucks loves to give us the hard end when it comes to those dates. But I would say showing up, really, if Starbucks is a big part of your life, as like many of our customers are, as many of our regulars have been doing, just showing up, saying like in solidarity, changing your order name to Workers United, Starbucks Organize. I know we have a few events that a few of us are being invited to. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure we got an invite to the Hillman Awards. Oh, yeah. To be able to show up and be congratulated for the efforts that we're putting through is so crazy. But I mean, we deserve this. We deserve the recognition. Even if Starbucks isn't the one that's going to be giving it to us right now, they're definitely being, pushed into a corner to finally acknowledge that we're part of the company, that corporate jets and 6 million bonuses don't really stand a chance when it comes to your entire company and the workers rallying behind a cause, to really make this a 3rd place. Mm-hmm.
And just to kind of like bring that back full circle to where we started, because I think that this is another thing that has been kind of mind-blowing about the Starbucks union, wave, I guess. I feel like we can call it a wave at this point, right? I mean, you and I were talking before we started recording that, in 2021, we saw a number of strikes and people were getting excited, present company included. But like, there was a way where we had to be kind of careful in calling it a strike wave, because I think the difference between like a lot of strikes happening at once and a strike wave happening is like there's a sort of self-conscious building effect, right? Like the more that folks are looking at the other strikes and learning from them and kind of doing what y'all are doing, right? Like where you said, like, more people realize that they want this, they start talking to each other, they see what's happening at other stores, they jump in, that's a wave. And I feel like this is what we're actually kind of, what this movement is turning into in 2022. And Starbucks is really kind of, y'all are leading the way in that. And I think that one thing folks are trying to figure out is what that generational makeup means for this movement, right? You said that you're part of a generation that doesn't feel like you have to take what past generations do. And mine included. I work service and I just took the shit, right? And whether it was always putting on the smiling face for the customer, and then just at the end of my shift, just feeling so drained, like I had no more energy left, no more happiness to give. Like it just hadn't really occurred to me to question that. So I guess I wanted to just, by way of asking and rounding out, what that sort of Gen Z element to this movement means for you, or I guess what it means for the movement itself.
I think that in the midst of, the growing union wave that we can call it, is this sense of opportunity that a lot of us in past generations have been given. And I think it is really a generational thing, because not only do we have what previous generations have built up for us, but we have, our own way of doing things, I guess you can say. And for me, that means making room. I feel for so long, the working class has been forced into a kind of position where we're making room for others. We're letting people step all over us. And kind of like a stampede almost. I can imagine people suffocating under the boots of others and instead of, falling to the stampede, we group together and we build a mountain, and we kind of breathe our way out and hold each other up. And that's what Gen Z really is, isn't it? We've really come into our own and spoken out, not even just here. You have social media. We have, so many organizers within my own store and those around us that are young. We're young kids, young adults that just want to be treated with respect. And I think something you hear all too often is respect isn't given, it's earned. And we're definitely fighting to earn that respect that we deserve.